Imagine a world engulfed by the all-consuming flames of war, a kingdom torn to pieces by feuding factions, a crown hanging in the balance on a very thin thread. Early 15th century France was a broken nation, its landscape laid to waste by an endless 100 Years' War that seemed to have no end. The English lion roared with terrifying force, claiming vast swaths of French territory, and the French king, Charles VII, was little more than a claimant to a shattered and diminished throne, his authority challenged and his legitimacy questioned. Hope seemed utterly lost, a mere flickering candle struggling to survive in a raging storm of conflict and despair. But it was from this very core of profound darkness that a light was to catapult a young woman who would defy the expectations of everyone, break the established order, and irrevocably alter the course of history for both France and England. It was in this peaceful, quiet village of Domremy, set amidst the gentle rolling hills and the bright green landscape in northeastern France, where this girl by the name of Joan was born circa 1412. She did not take birth in the great halls of some towering castle nor amid the pomps and pleasures of some king's court, but in that simple, unworldly life the peasants often led, enclosed on all sides by tilled fields and farms. She learned the practical skills of her station, to sew intricate patterns, to spin wool into thread, and to pray with unwavering devotion, as would any other girl of her humble background. But Joan was different, set apart by an inner strength and profound connection to her faith. She was deeply devout, her faith a burning fire within her soul, a constant source of comfort and guidance. And then, at the tender age of 13, a pivotal moment occurred that would forever alter the course of her life. She began to hear voices. These weren't just ordinary voices echoing in her mind. Joan firmly believed they were the divine voices of saints, the Archangel Michael, the warrior saint, Saint Catherine of Alexandria, the patron saint of learning, and Saint Margaret of Antioch, the protector of childbirth. They spoke with her clearly and to the point, instructing her, comforting her, and revealing to her that she had been chosen for a divine mission of the highest order, to save France from its devastating plight. Imagine the sheer weight of such an extraordinary revelation for a young girl, barely a teenager, still on the cusp of womanhood. To be chosen, not by earthly kings with their armies and political machinations, not by powerful dukes or ambitious nobles, but by God Himself, the ultimate authority. It sounds like a fantastic fairy tale, a legend spun from the threads of folklore and whispered around crackling fires. But for Joan, it was a profound and undeniable truth, a sacred calling that resonated deep within her being. For several years, Joan kept her extraordinary visions a closely guarded secret, a whispered promise held tightly within the confines of her heart, nurtured by her unwavering faith. But as time passed, the voices grew louder, their messages more insistent, their commands more urgent. They ordered her specifically to look for Dauphin Charles, the unproclaimed heir of the French throne, and to support him in regaining his crown usurped by this English pretender. It was a rather brazen plan, bordering on sheer madness in the eyes of the world. A mere peasant girl without any formal military training, no connections in high-level politics, nothing to do with the complicated machinery of courtly intrigue. Already daringly demanding an interview with the man who would turn out to be the future king of France? Unspeakably outrageous, a naked violation of norms both social and political. However, in the spring of 1429, inspired by the unyielding belief in her divine calling, Joan, dressed in men's attire for protection and practicality on her long journey, set out on her extraordinary and dangerous journey. She traversed treacherous enemy territory, facing constant skepticism, ridicule, and outright disbelief from those she encountered along the way. But her unwavering conviction, her unwavering faith in her divine purpose, proved remarkably infectious, radiating outwards and influencing those who came into contact with her. She managed to convince local authorities, initially hesitant and doubtful, to grant her safe passage and, ultimately, an audience with Charles at the imposing Château de Chinon. According to the lore, Charles covered himself with robes, hiding amongst his attendants, amongst nobles, and advisors of state, seeking perhaps to test if indeed Joan believed herself to enjoy a divine acceptance, and perhaps hiding also from his own potential scam artists. But Joan, upon entering the grand hall, without hesitation or apparent confusion, walked directly to him, singling him out from the assembled throng, and bowed respectfully before him, acknowledging him as the true king. It was a pivotal moment that dramatically cemented her credibility in the eyes of many, a moment that finally convinced Charles, however reluctantly and cautiously, that there might indeed be something truly extraordinary, perhaps even divinely inspired, about this remarkable young woman. Joan's unexpected arrival ignited a spark of long-dormant hope within the demoralized and fractured French court. She made a bold request, to lead the French army to relieve the strategically vital besieged city of Orléans, a crucial stronghold that was on the very verge of falling into English hands, a defeat that would have had devastating consequences for the French cause. Charles, desperate for any advantage, any glimmer of hope in the face of overwhelming odds, cautiously agreed to her request, granting her a degree of authority and entrusting her with a military command. And so, Joan, now known as the Maid of Orléans, rode into battle, a symbol of hope and defiance. Dressed in shining armor, a badge of her new military status, and carrying a characteristic white banner with the fleur-de-lis, the ancient symbol of French royalty, Joan inspired the French troops with the confidence and conviction that she would never waver. Her very presence on the battlefield, her unwavering belief in their ultimate victory, visibly transformed the army's morale, boosting their spirits and reigniting their fighting spirit. And against all odds, against the expectations of military strategists and seasoned commanders, they triumphed. In just 10 short days, the seemingly impenetrable siege of Orléans was lifted, a stunning and decisive victory that dramatically turned the tide of the seemingly endless war. Joan's string of victories continued in the wake of Orléans, making her reputation as a divinely inspired leader. She also steered the French army to further important victories in battle, which paved the way for Charles to finally be crowned king in a great ceremony at Reims Cathedral. Her main assignment, as she surmised from her divine revelations, was accomplished. The rightful king was firmly established on the throne of France, and the kingdom experienced order and legitimacy. However, the story of Joan does not end with a triumphant coronation and a happily ever after. She was taken in 1430 by the Burgundians at the Siege of Compiègne, a second city whose fall would greatly be seen as another significant defeat by the French. These Burgundians were English allies, which makes things very complex for a clear-cut situation. She was then sold to the English, who now had an excellent chance to ruin the popularity of Charles by tarring his lady by implication, who had so dramatically elevated him to his status. They put her on trial for heresy, a politically motivated act designed to break the French spirit. The trial was a blatant sham, a politically motivated attempt orchestrated by the English and their allies to discredit Charles and undermine the burgeoning French national identity and morale. Joan was interrogated day and night by theologians and church people, accused of witchcraft because she wore men's clothes. She was also speaking directly to God, which had defied the Church's power. She suffered under the extreme tension and the threatening, but without wavering she stood up so courageously by defending her visions with remarkable intelligence and eloquence, which confounded and baffled those who accused her. On May 30, 1431, an agonizing death by burning at the stake befell Joan of Arc in the teeming marketplace of Rouen when she was but 19 years old. The public display intended to destroy the spirit of the French resistance and to warn anyone that dared challenge English authority. Her execution was a highly choreographed show, a public demonstration of power meant to douse the flame of French resistance. It, however, ended up having the opposite effect and inadvertently turned her into something much more powerful. Joan's martyrdom almost instantly turned her into a very powerful symbol of French national identity, a beacon of unflinching hope in the darkest of times, a symbol of resistance against foreign domination. 25 years later, Charles VII himself started the retrial and cleared her of all charges as the injustice of condemnation was realized. And more than 3 centuries later, in 1920, she was declared a saint by the Catholic Church, giving her a place in history as both a religious and national figure. From humble peasant girl to fearless military leader, from accused heretic condemned to death to revered saint of the Catholic Church, the story of Joan of Arc remains one of the most extraordinary and enduring narratives in human history. It's a compelling tale of unwavering faith, extraordinary courage, and steadfast conviction in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. It is a powerful reminder that even the most ordinary people, from the humblest backgrounds, can rise to extraordinary heights, challenge the status quo, and change the course of history. Her legend lives on, inspiring countless people around the world.